Okay, welcome to our overview of how to maximize a gap year. I assume that you're here because your student is in the midst of transition or they're already planning or considering a gap year for this next year or semester. And so we want to provide some information about how to help them to maximize their time and their plan for that time during that gap time or that gap year and then beyond. And I'm Christy Martin, and my partner Beth Pittman and I started Skills Lab as parents were coming to us asking for our help with their sons or daughters who were in a transition, most of them leaving high school or college. And it's probably similar to what your kids are doing right now. These parents were struggling to find resources that could help them help their students prepare for interviews and present themselves professionally in situations and plan for their steps after high school or college. And parents were also coming to us saying that they needed help with their students that were not planning to go to college and were going to be entering the workforce. And they found that the schools that their children were attending were just not offering much training on how to get a job or how to interview, etc. So they came to Beth and I because we have worked in recruiting, hiring, and coaching professionals for the last 15 to 20 years. And this is what we do day in and day out. And so it was a very natural fit for us to create Skills Lab to bring this knowledge to what we saw was kind of an underserved market, which is students in transition. So again, I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. I graduated from the University of Arkansas and started my career in recruiting professionals to work at the Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. And after 10 years at Walmart, I moved to an executive search firm called Cameron Smith and Associates. And I recruit people to work in supplier positions who then sell to Walmart or other mass retailers. And I also focus on career coaching with people making job and life transitions as part of my work at CSA. And now Beth's going to tell you a little bit more about herself.
Thank you, Christy. So I started my recruiting career with Walmart. Was hiring people at the college graduate level all the way up to VPs in many different areas at Walmart. I did that for about 7 years, and then I left and started working at a third-party recruiting firm. I've been working with Cameron Smith and Associates for a little over 10 years now. I do the same thing as Christy does. I place candidates in Northwest Arkansas and around the country. I also work with the supplier community and then retailers and then other areas as well. So I appreciate you taking time to join us today, and we're excited to get started. Okay, what is a gap year? I know this is something that Christy and I talked about. You know, we didn't even consider a gap year after high school. We just thought that was going to be a year that kids didn't want to go to college, and so they just, laid on the couch and watched TV all day. But actually, it's not. Due to COVID, parents were asking a lot about a gap year, so we decided to create this session to address some of their questions and concerns. According to the Wall Street Journal, the term gap year has increased 60% since March. And the question, what is a gap year, is up 180% since April. So it appears that it's on everyone's mind. What is a gap year? The definition is definitely changing. It's really geared towards travel. It's typically that year after high school before they go into higher education. It usually involves traveling abroad, an internship, full-time work, or volunteering. So if I say gap year, I mean gap year or a gap semester. Some people don't take the entire year off. They'll take just a gap semester. And so one of the main reasons that parents and students are considering a gap year this year is basically because of COVID. Families are finding it difficult to pay a high price of tuition when their kids are going to be taking online courses from their bedroom. And so there's no need to send them across the country to attend a college when they can't experience the full college life. So some students may sit out this semester or the entire year just based on what's going on with COVID. The research done by the American Gap Association says that a gap year can be very beneficial. 90% of students who take a gap year return to college at the end of the year. That's very encouraging. Also, a GPA usually increases. Students are more mature, and students who took a gap year are usually more committed into their desired field. So over 80% of those kids find more career satisfaction. Whatever reason you choose for a gap year, we've put together 5 things that maximize your student's gap year. The first thing to do is to map out a college plan. So you start this in high school, you're probably already thinking about it. If you apply for a college, you get accepted, the best thing to do if you think you're going to take a gap year is go ahead and file for a gap year. Most colleges recognize this. You usually have to put a plan together and tell the committee what you're going to be doing during your gap year, but definitely go ahead and apply, get accepted, and then apply for a deferment. It's easier to get transcripts and your high school essays and referrals and all that while you're still in high school. So definitely continue to move forward with your college plan. Once you have deferred your enrollment due to a gap year, you need to understand what the rules of that college is. For example, some schools will not let you take online courses. And I know that several parents' plans was, hey, my kid's going to take some classes at the local community college until COVID's opened back up, and we're going to send them over there. Well, some schools will consider that a transfer, and so you need to make sure that you understand what that looks like. Also, from a financial aid perspective, you need to understand what your schools will and will not allow. If you've already applied to college and you've gotten accepted and then you've decided to defer, you have a plan in place to circle back at the end of that gap year. And that's a big deal because you're more likely to stick with the plan to continue on to college. And so that's the plan that your student's working towards, and that's some peace of mind for a lot of parents. Number 2, you need to make sure you have goals set. You need to have a goal for your goal year or gap year. This is not a break. This is not a time to binge watch Netflix. This is a time to really continue your students' learning and to really find out what their interests and passions are. Your student may want to play and do a bunch of things, but I'm telling you that year is going to fly by. So there are some gap year programs out there. So depending on what your student's interest is or desires for a profession, you can probably figure out what works best for them. Some of the programs have obviously been adjusted based on COVID guidelines, but I will tell you there are still a lot of things out there available. And this is a great program if your student needs a lot of organization and planning. They plan all that out, they find housing, all that kind of stuff. So we'll include some resources on the email that we send you after this so that you'll have some of that information. All right, the third thing is gain experiences. This is a fun one, I think. There's a lot of different things that you could do during your gap year. The student may need to work. This will allow the student to gain some experience, maybe in a field that they're interested in. I wouldn't say work at the local coffee shop unless they were thinking about maybe making a career out of that. But if there was an opportunity to, maybe if they thought about going to law school, if there was an opportunity for them to work in a law firm just a couple of hours a day, they could earn money and still be around that field to see if it's something that they're interested in. Again, I would make sure to understand what the financial aid package looks like if you're doing that, because your student earning money could affect that. Network. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to network in some of the desired field that you're interested in. If you think architecture is something that you may want to understand, you may want to network with business professionals in that field, or maybe visit with some construction people. Kind of understanding what that process looks like would be beneficial. Find a mentor program. This is something that your community may offer. You may have to develop this yourself, and you may sit down with your student and come up with a list of individuals in your community that you want to set up a 30-minute Zoom call with them so that they can understand what their role is at their organization or what their organization's about, and then talk through a mentorship program. A lot of internships have been canceled, but there are some online internships available, and so that's another resource and where you would gain experience. All these things are things that you would definitely put on a resume, and teachers and students, or teachers and employers are going to want to understand what your experience was during your gap year. They're going to ask you those questions. So it's good to see that you've put some time and effort into planning out those experiences. Another one is volunteering. If you don't have to worry about compensation, definitely look at some of the service opportunities that are out there. AmeriCorps is hiring lots of people, and you can go to their website and see different areas in the country where they're hiring people. It's a great opportunity to serve your country. Since this is a political year, they might want to work with a political candidate and see what that's all about. Healthcare. With COVID going on right now, the healthcare and environmental type issues, they're hiring contract tracers, and this is a great opportunity for you to kind of get hands-on and be able to make a difference in something that's a national or a global crisis, basically. And if you're staying close to home, there's lots of volunteer opportunities within your organization. So helping your student find out what those look like. If you need some help, we could definitely, but I'm sure even your local chamber would have some recommendations for you. And the last one is continued learning. You should never stop learning, and this is an opportunity for your student to maybe pick up some extra skills that they need. Everything is going online currently, so if there was an Excel certification that they wanted to get, you will always use Excel. You will always use PowerPoint. You will always be using some of those skills that kind of are an afterthought for executives or for managers. But if your kid knows how to do it, that will definitely help them in college and work. If they want to become fluent in another language and they had planned to travel abroad and work with kids at schools in other countries, you could still probably do that locally. So thinking about what that looks like, you could even maybe do that online. So there are ways to around not traveling but still being able to fulfill your continued learning. Learn a specific skill. Maybe you want to learn how to cook or get a yoga certification, something like that. Always work on soft skills. This is a great time to work on your writing and communication skills. Definitely do those types of things. A lot of young people are starting to work with life coaches. And, we think of that as something that only adults are doing, but we are definitely seeing more high school students and college students working with life coach to help them with their career and their life. And then study a new culture. This is a great time to really kind of branch out of your little bubble and see what else is out there and really deep dive into that. Remember that this time your student is really trying to learn their passions and interests. And so a great way to do that is some of these things, but it also enhances a resume. All these things they could put on there. If they have to reapply, maybe you haven't done the formal gap deferment and they need to apply for colleges, these things that they've done throughout this year is really going to stand out. So there was one individual who started college and then after the first semester decided to take a gap semester, and he realized that it just was not the right college for him. He found a gap year program, traveled for the next semester, and then reapplied to different colleges that fit more regarding what he was interested in. And he was able to secure an interview, and the first thing they asked him about was his experiences learning about different cultures, and he was accepted in his college of choice. So it's definitely something to think about in terms of looking at the big picture.
That you might be considering various options for your student during this gap time. And we put together some programs that could really help your student to be intentional and capitalize on some of those tips that Beth just discussed. And what really sets our programs apart is the personalized sessions. We have built them so that there's some group time, but then also some individual sessions that can really dig into goal setting and things one-on-one with your student. And it's kind of like joining a gym. You could become a member, and then it's up to you to be self-motivated to go to the gym 3 times a week. But if you sign up to be a member and you sign up with a personal trainer, then you have invested and have accountability, and you're likely going to achieve your goals better and faster than you would have with just your own self-motivation. So we kind of think of these programs in the same way. And we know as parents, you're looking for something that will help your student to succeed, but then will also make things as pain-free as possible for you. And we know as parents that sometimes hearing something from a different source, or a source that has some sort of expertise, will make all the difference for your student. So it's not that you haven't been doing or saying some of these things, but we know that hearing them from a different source sometimes can be that light bulb moment. And it's whatever works, right? We've put together these 2 program options that I'll tell you a bit more about. The first one is How to Maximize a Gap Year. It's a 2-session program, and we're starting that on August the 18th. The first session will be a live group session with one of us as the coach, and then a group of students in that session. We'll go through things such as networking and mentoring. What does that actually mean? How do you find these people, and how can it really be beneficial to you during your gap time and then beyond into college and beyond that? We'll talk about job search and interview tips. So if your student is looking for some sort of employment during their gap year, they'll get a really great foundation of tips to go and enter the job market. But then also it's a good foundation for beyond as they look at internships or leaving college. We'll also talk about more of the volunteering and continued learning opportunities that Beth discussed. There's so many things out there, and so we'll help to kind of broaden your students' mindset on what those might be for them, where they can plug in their skills and interests, and really build out their resume and their experiences. And then after that group session, we will schedule an individual coaching session with your student where we'll ask them to complete a self-assessment in advance of that session. And that'll help your student to dig into their skills and interests, and just maybe probably answer some questions that they might not have ever thought about their future career, what they want for their life, their lifestyle, just things that are goals for them as they move through the next 5-10 years of their life. And we'll help them to take all of that and turn that into a college plan, college major, and just what kind of jobs and things that they could look for as a career option based on their skills and interest and life plan. So it's really a deep dive for your student into some questions that will get their brain stirring, and then we'll help to put that together for them as far as what does that look like in a college experience for you. And then we'll help them to tailor some goals for their gap time and for exiting that gap time, basically. And so those goals that Beth talked about that are so critical to this time will help to narrow those down and work with your student on that. The second plan that we've put together is a bit more intensive, and it gets back to that gym analogy of being accountable. And so this is a 9-session program. It's our gap year coaching program. And that start date will be tailored to your student's schedule, but we'd ideally be meeting with them via virtual sessions once monthly over 9 months, and really building a plan for them, helping to work that plan with them and execute towards a reentry into college or whatever their goals might be at that point, because they definitely could change. And so we'll do a lot of the same things as the 2-session plan, but just really do a deep dive into their goal setting. What does the gap year look like? What does it look like when they exit the gap year? Working on networks and mentorships again. Who are those people? And holding them accountable to actually reaching out and building that network over the 9 months. Career planning, again, using that self-assessment to dig into their skills and interests, turning that into a college plan, a college major. What does that experience look like for them beyond college and a career? We'll get into things like personal brand and how are they branding themselves on social media when they're sitting in front of an interviewer and presenting themselves professionally. What does that look like, and what does that say about the brand that they're building for themselves and how important that is in the next 5 to 10 years for them? We'll get into job search and interview tips again, helping them to build that foundation, whether they're looking for a gap year job or beyond that. They'll have a great foundation of skills. And then we'll kind of work them through a plan of reentry into education. What does that look like for them? What are their goals and planning? Things like, do I need to get back on the radar with my university? Do I need to reapply for housing? What are the timelines and things that we need to be checking off to make sure those goals are met? So both of those sessions, you can find more information on our website, and you can also sign up on our website. So that will be a next step. We will send you an email after the session with details about the 2 gap year programs. And then we'll also send you some of those additional gap year resources that Beth mentioned. And then we'll also have a link in that email to a survey. We'd love your feedback about this session and knowing a little more about what your student needs. If you have questions after the session, feel free to reach out to us. Beth's email and our phone number is there. We'd love to talk with you more about each of the sessions if you're questioning things or want to find out more information before you sign your student up. And then we hope that you enjoyed watching this, and we would love for you to share this with your friends. We will be having another parent gap year session on August the 11th, and you can sign up for that on our website or on our Facebook events. And we'd love for you to share that with your friends if you feel like they would benefit from this as well, and they can attend and learn more about it on the 11th. So again, thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing your students soon.
Yeah.
Yay.